All right, says we're live. How's it going tonight, everybody? Kind of running off for some stuff, and I just got back, so I'm a little late. I didn't have the ticker going, all the fun stuff. Got a guest coming. Told them that I was a minute or two late, but I'll be here. So uh, either way, I'll figure I'll start it, and I'll pay attention to the phone here just in case he says he can't get in or something like that. So anyhow, today's show is how to live life on your own terms. I talk about money. Money is something that we don't talk about enough or properly a lot in society. I actually had a consultation last week, I think it was, the week before, one of the two, with a money expert. And that was kind of part of the conversation, was the fact that we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it right. And there are some things to know about it that can greatly enhance your life. And just different ways of going about things. So a lot of traps that a lot of guys fall into, society kind of leads you into. There's a few interesting things we'll get into along the way here that will really be shockers and eye-openers when you understand how to break the math down and you realize how much of an impact these tiny little things can have a massive impact in your life. I wish I would have learned some of these a lot earlier in life. Would have been a lot better off. I've been in a better place than I am today. Don't get me wrong, I'm comfortable, but the difference is literally millions of dollars could have been different. So if I would have played things a little differently. So having some of this knowledge, especially if you're a younger guy, which I hope I'm talking to some younger guys or even some older guys, I'm starting back over at 50 and well, in a way, I guess. In a way, you start over, but you don't actually start over because you have experience you didn't have when you were younger. So you're starting from a different point. It's not necessarily starting over. But so just some general ideas of understanding finance and understanding how to literally take your situation and maximize it. I know most people talk about, or most guys, most advice you're going to get is go out, make millions of dollars, buy your Lamborghini and live the party boy lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. And if you have the ability to do that, you should. The reality is most people are never going to get there. And when I say most, I'm talking like 97% of people will never get to that point in life. So how do you take a normal situation and maximize it to the point where you're living on your own terms and you're living a life of freedom? And I've been both. I was very free, doing very well when I was young. Got married, made some mistakes in that, and combination of both me and my wife at the time, we just weren't as good with the money. We're making a whole shitload more, but just weren't as good with it. Didn't do things properly, and had things have been done differently, would have been in a much different situation. But there's a way to kind of maximize your lifestyle, your freedom. So going back to that kind of lost train of thought there. So during that period of time when I was married and for a little while afterwards, cleaning up the mess and shit afterwards, I had to stream. Sorry about that. Accidentally hit a button trying to turn the comments on. My bad. I left you guys unexpectedly. The joys of the new show. So, which I never leave my phone there. I'm trying to see if the guest is coming. That's why. So, I lived that period of time with the proverbial gun to my head. I made those mistakes where I had set my lifestyle and my living up to my income, which didn't leave me with a lot of wiggle room, with a lot of freedom. Now, I'd already invested a bunch, had a business going, was making money and stuff like that. So, it wasn't all bad, but it certainly could have been better. And if I wouldn't have been in that position, I would have never been in the position I am in today. I would have never had the experience and the knowledge that I gained. I never would have been in a position to start a business, to do that sort of stuff, because I would have been under the gun, proverbial, with a job where there is no way out. So with that, I'm just going to double check here. My guys got this. link. I'm going to send it to them here on the old Facebook if I got it. Where is he? Do one of those and go. All right. So he's got the link now anyhow. So there's a couple of ways to do it. First of all, you can make more. We always say that, just make more money, which sometimes is easier said than done. So on any balance sheet in accounting, there are two sides. You have your income side and you have your expense side. And in life, like yourself as a job or even as a business, it doesn't matter what it is, you have income and you have outgo. You have income and expenses. So, everybody thinks, well, make more money, we'll just raise the prices. Well, you can only raise your price so far before your customers either A, won't pay it, or B, they'll find an alternative to you because you've priced yourself out of the market. So there's a limit to how much you can increase your income in some capacity. You can grow your business, you can get better at your job, you can get a promotion, such like that. But there is always somewhat of a limit to your availability to increase. And the one that a lot of people don't look at is the other side, and that's the expense. And the one thing you are in control of is your expenses. And if you're smart and you pay attention to this and you really hone in on and learn how to focus on controlling your expenses, you can spread that gap to the point where your income far exceeds your expenses. And all of a sudden now you live a life of where you're in control. Your boss can't come to you and say, hey, you're going to do this or else you're going to lose your job. Piss on you, man. I got 6 months of income in the bank. I really don't need you. Like, I can go get another job tomorrow. I'm going to replace you. Then you don't become replaceable. Your job becomes replaceable. Your boss becomes replaceable. All of that sort of stuff. Putting yourself in those positions, that's how you really take control of your life. There's a couple of ways to do it. I see my guest has popped in the green room here, so I'll bring him on in a few minutes. But a big thing to think about is, which is something he's really good at. We talked about this on our after show last week. So once again, if you're not a member of, of my community group, get a hold of us and come join the group, because we do after hours chats where we talk about things in a lot more detail that we can't discuss or don't want to discuss publicly. We discuss business ideas, business opportunities. We've even discussed starting a business together. And getting that going. What's it going to look like? What parts are people going to play? We don't have those discussions publicly because we don't want to give away our idea. It's ancient Chinese proverb. You air your private business in public, it is no longer private. So we don't air private business in public. We speak about that behind our paywall. So that's the reason for that. So come join the communities, hook us up. And like I say, smash the like button on this and hit the subscribe button. Share it with people. If you could help me grow this, would be great. So like I say, we were talking about this last week, is most people, if they make a $100,000 income, which seems to be the magic number, everybody says make 6 figures, which depending where you are in the country is hard to do or easy to do. Where I am, it's not difficult to make $100,000 in a year. There's high school dropouts here who make far more than that. But I'm in an oil-rich part of North America, so there's a lot of money in the oil industry and in hard jobs and stuff like that. Make $100,000 a year in New York City is not that difficult compared to making $100,000 a year in Lincoln, Nebraska. Entirely different markets, entirely different income schedules, entirely different expense schedules, which is kind of what we're going to go on. Find a way where you can maximize your income, and especially if you can get location independent. But even if you can't, find a career or a specialty or alter yourself a little bit where you can go and do that somewhere where the cost of living is less. Yeah, it may not be as glamorous of a place to live, but the flip side is, I'm not saying you have to do this forever unless you choose to. Like, I live in the backwoods, so I'm kind of an oddity that way. And same with my guest. He lives in a place that's would not be the first priority pick of most people. But when we break this down, hopefully you'll understand the advantages it gives us. And the things it can do for you, the opportunity it can provide for you in life. And these are opportunities that, as a young man, and if you're smart, you'll take advantage of, because they will literally alter the course of your family history if you play these right and you do them smartly. So if you can get somewhere where you make $100,000, where the typical income in the neighborhood is somewhere in the $60,000 range, you've got a 40% advantage on the average. And your cost of living is going to be based on roughly a $60,000 income, because that is the average of the area. Now you can go live in the fancy neighborhood, buy that, $900,000 house on the golf course if you want, and you'll be house poor in an area where it's going to be difficult to unload the house because most people don't make your $100,000, and you're living a lifestyle beyond the average, and you have no money left over because you chose this exorbitant lifestyle. That's not living life on your own terms. That's putting yourself at the mercy of somebody else, because now you have to take that job. You have to do that overtime. You don't have the freedom of movement of, fuck it, I'm going to leave this place and go somewhere else, or I'm going to take a different job. When you don't have those freedoms, you're literally under the gun, and your life is not your own. You're not in control. And that is my biggest thing. I don't care if you are an employee, if you want to be a solopreneur, you want to be an entrepreneur, own your own business. You want to be in control of your destiny as much as possible. You want to be able to move freely and do what you want. So once again, lowering your expenses is your big thing. So with that, I'm going to bring my guest in because he really knows the real estate market, especially in the US. I'm in Canada. I kind of know it here, but I don't know what the depths my guest does. So he can really break down some of these things and how they work and ways to do this. And I guess places in the country to avoid and maybe some opportunities to look at as well. So with that, I'm going to bring in my friend, Steve Barker. He's a member of our group and he comes and chats after hours. Like I'm telling you guys to get joined up with us and come and do. And we talk a little more in depth. And that's largely where this conversation came from. So with that, I'll bring him in. Welcome, Steve. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I'm killing it. How are you?
Fantastic. Fantastic. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 33. I own a single person business, a consulting firm in the insurance business, and play competitive golf on the side. And I live in the Midwest.
There you go. Cool. So a single person business, you're probably pretty location independent. You can live wherever you choose.
Yeah, definitely. I've lived being more than 60 days, 90 days in a location I've lived in 23 different states, probably 40 different markets. My career originally drug me around a bit. So I kind of got paid while seeing the country in that way. And I learned a lot about, expenses, what was important to me, what wasn't, mostly what wasn't, a lot of what wasn't. And I chose to be in Kansas, of all places. Nobody comes here. But I found that it was the most affordable market that I could be in, safest place, nicest people. It's got a lot of really, really solid upside to it.
Excellent. Yeah, and that was one of the things we spoke about after hours last week was the living somewhere where cost of living is cheaper. I actually had a conversation with a money person today, a business. We were talking some business stuff, and the constraints on the economy and the what do you call it? The recession we're going to go into. Most people don't understand that the math roughly works out at, for every $100,000 of mortgage that you have, every 1% that the interest rate goes up, your mortgage payment goes up by $100 per month. So whereas most people think 1% is not that big of a deal. Well, if you have a $500,000 mortgage, interest rates go up 1%, your mortgage payment goes up $500 a month.
Absolutely.
Most people are sitting on what, $500,000-$600,000 mortgage?
Yeah, I would say somewhere between, realistically, if conservatively, they're probably sitting on 250 to 500. That's a pretty normal house these days. I mean, you can go lower, but it's not common anymore.
Right.
Unless you're somewhere sub household income under 80,000, which actually is a lot less common in America now. Normally it's the average person makes $55,000-$60,000 a year. Two people are working in the house. So I would say it's about right at six figures.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And numbers are a little higher in Canada, but our expenses are probably proportionally about the same, give or take, maybe a little higher on.
Right. Absolutely.
But
Sure.
Housing prices are probably roughly similar, give or take, anyways, within a couple percent. But
Yeah, I would
yeah,
say coastal markets for sure. I would just to tell people just stay off the coast. Like
yeah,
that's pretty much kind of the start of the key of kind of living this minimal. I call it minimalist capitalist lifestyle. It's stay off the coast, stay out of large metropolitan areas, even inside the coast. They're not including the South, but the Phoenixes, the Phoenixes, the Miamis, the San Diego's, the California in general, anything that's predominantly Democrat. I mean, anything predominantly Democrat is going to be significantly more expensive. I mean, lifestyle wise, I would say day to day is probably a little bit better. I mean, there's a little bit more options. I wouldn't say better. I think that better is depends on the human that we're talking to, right? But I do believe that if you're okay with a more simple, slower life in general, that somewhere Texas is a great state, Oklahoma great state, anywhere in the South pretty solid states, a little more dirty, but that doesn't really affect your life the way that you would think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's ironically, somebody asked the question was going to come up here in a bit, but UK sports. So if you're not spending any money, what are you doing with it? Well, we're not advocating, and neither is Steve. We're not advocating don't do anything. Just
Literally,
live
yeah,
like a hermit
absolutely.
and save it. It's the point is, if you don't live up to your maximum amount of mortgage and the maximum amount of car payment and that sort of stuff, you have the money to take
Live.
vacations, live like
I
Steve.
mean,
What he says, plays competitive golf. What you said, like 2-3 times a week, something like that.
yeah. In season, I'm practicing 2 or 3 days a week at $50 a whack, right? Plus a coach, plus physios, plus trainers, dietitians, stuff like that. Competitively, it is, I mean, $600, $700, $800 a tournament, and I'm not making any money. This isn't high level, Corn Ferry Tour open stuff. This is basic entry level scratch golfers just really enjoying the tournament atmosphere. So we're nearly 100% expenses. And I would say realistically during the season, I can put, it can cost me anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a week just to compete at the level that I'm looking at. Yeah.
So if you were to try and do that, so the freedom of keeping your expenses and your lifestyle in a very reasonable place allows
Sure.
you the extra money and the freedom to do things like that. Same thing back when I was in my 20s and early 30s. I spent, I won't even say the numbers, an exorbitant amount of money drag racing.
Right.
And if you've ever been to a drag strip, you know that it is not a cheap place to play. I can't count on one hand how many motors I blew up. I can't count on two hands actually how many motors I blew up. They're not cheap.
Yeah, you're 5 figures a weekend sometimes. Yeah.
So, but I did the same thing. I was making $80,000 a year and I lived on 30. It gave me
And that was
freedom
20 years ago, right? Is what you're talking about?
30 years ago.
30 years ago. Okay, I don't mean to age you like that, but yeah, I understand. I understand. Yeah. I think it's a muscle like anything else, right? You have to build it. You have to start somewhere slow. This is just kind of my natural way of being. I've never been a stuff guy. I've always been an experiences guy. I had a plan 5 years ago to move all my shit into a van and drive around the United States and play all top 100 public courses in the United States, regardless of how much the tee time was. And that's kind of always how I've been. I've always kind of been a wanderer in that way as well. So I think for me, I didn't mean to do it. I think now I just kind of can look in retrospect and say, oh shit, I got to do some pretty cool stuff. I got to go live in Japan for a couple of years. I got to, travel. I got to travel around. I mean, like I said, 23 states. That's a lot of states to be in when I mean, you can drive to any state in the United States. It's not that big of a deal, but I had the money to travel. I had the money to see stuff. In my 20s, I was, making even more money than I'm making now in sales, and I was able to party with people that were, from the Northeast, or go out and hang out with people in Florida, or get on a plane. That's kind of that's part of, the thing now is I live in a place where I can get on a plane and I can be in Vegas in 3 hours and it costs me $300, right? And I don't even have to think about it. It's just, oh, hey, I'm going to go to Vegas this weekend and play golf, right? So, but it's a lot to digest for somebody who grew up in the consumer culture, and they're, oh, I have to have this house and I have to have this car and I have to uphold some version of image for other people, when the reality is nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. Like, they're not, you'll realize, I mean, I realized really young, I think almost overly young, that most people aren't even paying attention to you. So what you drive is irrelevant. Where you live is irrelevant. Like, if everything went to shit and I had zero money, I would start doing something similar to what I'm doing now. Is for start a business, low cost, whatever, move into a $500 apartment because they're available here, and drive a $3,000 car. Yeah. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? So I don't advocate for that for people who are, driving a brand new 5 Series BMW and live in a $3,000 apartment, and they'll just go into some crazy depression or something like that when, reducing their expenses. It's like, get to a level you're comfortable, live there a bit, and then and then dial it back just a little bit. Maybe the going out to eat. I used to go out to eat all the time. Now I just choose not to. It's easy to make a meal. It takes 15 minutes. I'm not married to food, right? And I've realized that I'm just more efficient as a human being and as a business owner as well. So if that answers your question, or if there was a question.
Yeah, kind of. Same guy asks, so what assets have you built up? So I guess I'll start with that one. It's your choice what you decide to share. So,
sure.
I mean, I built a trucking business that was worth 7 figures quite easily. It cost me 80% of that to walk away in the divorce. So it cost me almost everything. And took me a couple of years to get back on my feet after that was done. And then I piled up a whole bunch of cash and decided to change life and do something different. Why? Because I had 2 years of money in the bank. Because I chose to live below my means, I was able to bank 2 years of money inside of 2 years, because I lived on half or less than half of what I made. I did that to pay off my debt after the divorce, get all that legal crap and all that shit cleaned up, and the spousal support that hurt like a bastard. And not many people can afford to do that, to take 2 years off to start a new business and do something different, right? And it was that ability to do that. So I'm still sitting on the assets of my trucking company. I still own them. They're still here. I still have those assets. I'll probably liquidate them when the new thing gets going, but it's kind of my insurance policy. So because I ran my business the way that I ran it, my equipment was paid for. When I decided to do something different, I literally parked it, pulled the insurance off of it, and let it sit. And it was an insurance policy. I didn't have to sell that to have the money to continue on, because I didn't live beyond my means. I lived well below them. So, and I don't, when I decided to do this, I had a fairly nice new pickup, and somebody come along. It was during the whole COVID time, and somebody offered me more money than I paid for it. And I'd been driving it for 4 years. So it's like, yeah, there you go.
That's a win. Absolutely.
Yeah, I still have my 25-year-old pickup. Like you say, nobody gives a shit what you drive. Now, granted, 100%. It was a pickup I was driving when I was drag racing, so it's bright yellow, stands out like a turd in a punch bowl. You can see me coming from 100 miles away, but I don't really care.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's paid for. It's motor transport.
Yeah, for me, assets wise, multiple 6-figure net profit business, and 3 short-term rental properties, and I also own an $80,000 pickup that was paid for in cash, that is now rented at $1,000 a month to a neighbor of mine in South Georgia. So I make $1,000 a month off of that too. So total, I mean, assets wise, I think that's I think the question is on the right track. I just think that might be too consumery. I don't necessarily think you need to own a bunch of shit. That's actually kind of the opposite. It's if you can create something, right? You don't even have to own a business. Have a job, right? That makes you $100,000 and just reduce your expenses and build your shit up. Like that's kind of where somebody would start. But yeah, I mean, I made $500,000 in cash and a couple $100,000 a year in income and a truck and a couple of short-term rentals. And that's pretty much it. I don't think any more is necessary, frankly, at this point in my life. I'm 33 years old and I fucked off 90% of my 20s. So I'd say in 4 years, I scrapped together whatever I could from that experience, right? And now we're here.
Yeah, that's really good at 33. You're ahead of where I was. That's for sure.
I mean,
and I mean that's by doing the whole living below your means thing. It gives you that money. It gives you the freedom. Like you said, you want to jump on a plane and go to Vegas. I'm a motorcycle guy. I've got 3 of them. Yeah, 3 of them downstairs. I decide I'm fucking off to the mountains for the weekend. I fuck off to the mountains for the weekend. I can, and it becomes a bit of a different thing. It allows you the freedom to live your life on your terms, and also allows you to put, like back in my 20s when I was spending exorbitant amounts of money drag racing, I was also saving an equal amount of money, which allowed me to build my business from the point that I was at, and actually built it from, a business did a couple $100,000 a year to at some points over $1 million. And I would have never been able to acquire the equipment it took to grow to that level had I have not saved. If I'd have lived at my income level, I would have never had the money to take advantage of those opportunities.
I think that once you get to a certain, and by no means am I rich at all, but I think once you get to a certain, call it weekly income level, you just kind of naturally, you've been living at a certain level for so long, right? You've been living at, say, 60K for so long that when you get to 120, you do kind of like, even me being the guy who says it's a natural thing for me to just kind of chill. You still kind of you realize you don't need it because you never really needed it. And then it just becomes a game, because that's all it really is. And yeah, I mean, I have income goals, but at the same time, I'll also go to the casino on a weekend and blow a couple grand just for fun, just to amuse myself. And it's part of like the harmony of being a human being. It's like you are, nobody here is saying go and live in a hole and ride a bicycle everywhere. Absolutely not. I think that there is certain people have to live up to their own personal, I guess, like minimum lifestyle standard, right? And it's all dependent on income. It's all dependent on your long-term financial goals. It's all dependent on how important your ego is to you at the end of the day, right? And I just don't care. Like, I just don't care like that. I just like, I just like doing my business, and but I also like fucking it off. Just as much, and I have to rein myself in just like everybody else. I'm nobody, you know what I mean? So I think that the main lesson out of that question, I'm still stuck on the assets question because it's kind of the reverse psychology of what we're talking about. Is set your assets up to whatever you want in 10 years. Don't think about it right now. Like I don't as far as the short-term income properties, I'm renting houses that are paying a small fee that I don't even see. It goes into a separate bank account. I'm not reaping the benefits of that necessarily at all. It's just like a retirement account type of thing. And those can go away whenever they tell me to get the hell out. You know what I mean? So I go back to just running my business.
but it gives you that flexibility to have, purchase those rental homes and create that, create the thing that, and everybody,
Yeah.
pick your level. Like we talked about that last weekend about how, some guys level, they want the $4 million house in Miami and they want the 3 Lamborghinis and a McLaren in the
Sure.
garage. And,
Why not? Yeah.
if you want that and you have the ability to earn it, go and do it. Or by no means am I
100%.
saying don't
Yeah.
do it. And I'm with Steve. You don't have to live in a hole. But you also, like we've expressed, is you don't have to spend half of your income trying to impress people who don't really fucking like you anyway.
Yeah.
Like you used my greatest 3 words in the English language as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. I don't care what people think. Who gives a shit?
It doesn't fucking matter, dude. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, back to the $4 million house and the Ferraris or Lamborghinis or whatever car you used. There's nothing wrong with. I want that, right? But I know that once I get it, if I'm not living a life that's just true to myself, like in what I want and who I am, that even if I do get it, I'm going to be just as miserable. And it's just shit. It's just maintenance, right? It's just now I got to go get the fucking Ferrari oil changed, and now I got to pay the lawn care guy, and all the fucking foundations now broken in whatever that means in a $4 million house. Like you're acquiring problems, and the idea is that you're reducing these expenses to you're not even necessarily okay. So you're not even necessarily reducing expenses specifically. You're reducing the maintenance cost of your life, so that you can free up to do whatever the fuck you want. That at the end of the day, that's what we're actually talking about. It's like you're not like, if you don't mind doing that shit, or you enjoy cutting your own lawn, and you don't mind that, or your girl doesn't mind that she's cleaning a $1 million or 5,000 square foot house, then do that. Like, nobody's telling you not to do that. We're not telling you to go get a studio apartment unless you're making $150K and you want to save 100 of it, right? So it's so case by case dependent. But like I said, for me, it was that I just started out this way, and I just kind of like living this way. It's not everybody has to do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things too, is if you can learn to, live your lifestyle at say $60,000-$70,000 a year, and you're making 100 to 120 or something like that.
Right.
When you do get to that position in life where you can buy that, $4 million mansion with Ferraris and Lamborghinis and McLarens and shit in the garage, at that point, you're also going to have probably a pretty good concept and understanding of money and living within your lifestyle. And you're not going to buy that $4 million house when all you can afford is a $4 million house. And all of a sudden, like I say, the air conditioning goes out. Like, the air conditioning goes out on a $4 million house. It's not one unit. There's usually 2 or 3. So it's 3 times the cost of your little 1,500 square foot house right now.
Yeah.
And these things all magnify and amplify with all
it's
that.
50 grand all day long.
Yeah.
Just to fix that. I mean, and you're talking about stuff that happens all the time. Your roof goes out in let's dumb it down to $1 million home. Okay. So you got 2 AC units. Okay. That's 30K, 20K, 30K. Great. Okay. A roof goes out. Well, you've got a 4,000 square foot house. That roof's going to cost you somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 in expensive markets. I'm probably inflating it a little bit. You have a water loss in your house, so a pipe breaks and blows the shit up. Your fucking deductible's $15,000. I mean, you're just accumulating risk is what it is. You're taking personal financial risk that isn't necessary unless you have the means. But even if you, I guess even if you have the means, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's more of an ego play than it is anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the underlying cause of all these issues that we're having in society today.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jaron's gotten on here. We both know Jaron. Says, I have very few things, but everything I own is top notch and serves maximum utility. Having less physical stuff frees up a lot of mental real estate. And that's true.
Absolutely.
Like you say, you golf. I'm quite sure that you're not golfing with, $99 Sears golf clubs.
No, I get shit. I probably spend $200 twice a year just to re-grip my golf clubs. The golf, I mean, you're talking. If you want to play with the best equipment, you're going to be looking somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 at any given time, and that doesn't. Well, that may or may not include fitting. That may or may not include any adjustments you make to your bag. That may or may not. I mean, preferential stuff, like it can get really, really, really expensive. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's not a cheap sport.
Yeah, for sure. So Justice has got one here. What do you guys recommend to guys just starting out with nothing, either moving out for the first time or starting over with nothing?
I think that we need to get a little bit more specific as far as where do they live, what have they saved any money up, what do they want to do with themselves, are we talking just a kid with no skills, just barely leaving the house? I mean, there's the obvious option, right? You go get a tiny shitty studio apartment and a $2,500 car and grind it out. That's where we all start, right? Most of us, at least. And then you have the kid who lived with his parents till he was 22, and he saved up, $25,000. He's got his own car, he's got a job or whatever, and he's just ready to go. Yeah. I think I actually think it's probably the same answer. I think it's absolutely the same answer. If you're moving out on your own at first, get the smallest place that you can possibly tolerate. Get used to living by yourself. Figure out how much real estate you actually take up. Jaron and I were talking about that on the podcast last night. He said, I sit in my office. I sit in this one spot on my couch, or I'm in my kitchen, or I'm in my bed. I take up a total of like 10 square feet at a time in a 800 square foot apartment. And it's funny because I was having the same conversation with my girlfriend the other day. It's like we live in 1,000 square foot apartment. We take up a total of maybe 250 at any given time, maybe, and that's like we shit spread out everywhere, right? So we don't necessarily, maybe sanity space, but as a single person, I mean, dude, you can live in a fucking shithole 350 square foot flat for nothing and just save the shit out of your money and do stuff that is actually valuable to yourself and the people around you in the world, really.
Well, that's how you can have your opportunities to, like you say, experiences or save to build a business or buy something at that point and actually have something. When you're spending it every single month, it's hard to put any away. I got a pretty good idea of, I think I kind of know who this is. I dropped the join link in the chat. So if anybody wants to call in and talk about this a little bit more, Justice, if you want to clarify that question a little bit or something, but assets equals real estate investments, income producing items or appreciating assets, not referring to stuff, as that's a liability, just for clarity. Like I say, a pretty good idea who this is, and I'm not going to blow up his spot or anything, but he knows money at a very, very high level, and I would actually like to have a conversation with him. I'd actually appreciate having him on as a guest one day too, because good guy, learn a lot from him. But
I think go ahead.
Oh, so like I say, we're also not advocating to live like this forever. Like, we're not saying live in a 350 square foot apartment for the rest of your life. Do it for a year or two, bank some cash to give yourself options. Having options lets you live life on your own terms. When you live up to your income level or slightly beyond it, you have no options, and you're not living life on your own terms when you have no options. Yeah,
it's just stress. It's not really necessary. You see, like, the make ends meet people, and that's the gross majority of people. So you can't just pigeonhole, in America, 300 billion people, right? But they're the make ends meet people. Like, it's just a paycheck to paycheck thing. And it's such a weird thing because the income disparity, right? Like, the make ends meet people can be 30K, 20, 25, 30K where I live, right? Where it's not poverty by any stretch of the imagination. You're still eating, you're still in a reasonably nice neighborhood, but your rent's maybe a little higher than it should be. You got a little bit too much space. Maybe you got a small car note, $300 and insurance. But when you're making $2,500 a month, $800 rent, $300 car, $150 insurance, $150 gas, groceries, $400 a month, probably. I mean, that's right. If I'm doing the math right, that's like roughly 75% of your income. And then what's left over, you want to go to a concert, you want to go to the bar on a weekend, you want to go and see a show. It's cost you $100, right? I mean, any given time you can drop $100. So you got $100 a week in disposable income, whatever that means, because none of it's really that disposable. So like you're really, but also there's people who just overextend. We're the basis of the conversation. They've got $1,000 car note and a $2,000 or $3,000 rent in a marketplace where they could go and get a $1,200 rent, and they could go and buy, instead of buying a BMW, they can buy a Honda or something like that. That's not as flashy, but it's more practical, and that's kind of what I preach is be practical with yourself. Don't put yourself in a position where you can't think about anything other than how you're going to make your next meal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Living, to your next meal and all that, it's no place to be. Having some of that flexibility,
Right.
like you say. And the other thing is, if you happen to be a guy that didn't have opportunity in life, didn't have a chance to go to school, and you're somebody who only can make like $50,000 a year, and you're still living in Miami, maybe you should think about relocating and
go to Orlando, bro. Go to Orlando. It's not.
Yeah.
It's half as expensive. Go move to Jacksonville. It's a shithole. I hate for somebody to. It's a shit compared to Miami. Jacksonville's a shithole. But you can get an apartment for $800, and you're still in Florida, and you're 4 hours from the house. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's not a permanent thing. It's to set yourself up where you can then go back to, or you can go to the
it's a
lifestyle
chess
that
move.
you want to.
Yeah, it's a chess move. That's all it is.
Well, yeah. So we got a caller here called in. We'll bring him in. Add him in.
Sweet.
So, hey, Kevin, how are you doing? You're muted, by the way. You're muted.
Super muted.
I can hear me now.
There you
Yep.
go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I just, wanted to join because I completely agree with what Steve's talking. Just because you've got multiple six-figure businesses and you've got stuff going on and you live in Kansas, there's no reason to throw a flex factor on and go buy that Lambo.
Sure.
And, just like I said in the chat, it's just as much gratifying to know you can go buy a Porsche or you can go buy a McLaren than actually doing it, because who are you trying to impress?
Yeah.
But, and like you said too, I mean, with going to the casino and dropping a couple grand, for somebody that makes or is leveraged to the gills, they leave pissed off. You don't have to,
Right.
Because that was pocket change. You almost walked in wanting to lose it.
It's hurt.
And so I wanted to join that too. And I've been talking with Bentley, offline a little bit, about getting started with all this. I've been with the 10% for a couple of weeks now. Want to support him as much as I can.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk more in the after show about my journey and where I'm at, because I've spent the last 3 years getting completely 100% debt free. And
that's awesome. Congratulations.
Good for you. Congratulations.
That, it's one thing to saying, I paid off a fucking $3,000 credit card, but to pay off this house that I'm living in and the things the journey I went through to get to that, it was an eye-opening experience.
Was it worth it?
Oh, of course it was worth it.
Of course it was worth it.
Working in Georgia.
Paid for a mortgage.
Living in,
dude,
this is my
deserves a
my
hand.
house. I was living in a CHU, they call them combat housing units or container housing units. Smaller than this, but man, when that paycheck hit every month and I knew it was paying something off, it was more, it was better than anything. Just like we were talking about, you live in 1,000 square foot house or apartment, but you can go buy a 4,000 square foot house probably with cash tomorrow. But,
I wouldn't say that necessarily, but it's
where you live, I guess.
I could maybe put a deposit on a $400,000 house tomorrow and feel comfortable.
You know what I'm getting at.
I understand.
It's one of those things, and we talked about, you don't have to. I live in the suburbs of Raleigh. I'm 45 minutes away from the city.
It's a nice city. I like Raleigh.
Raleigh, but I would be paying $2,500 a month on a 1-bedroom apartment, and even with the income that I have, I'd be apartment poor, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
But still, if I want to go out, I can jump in the car or get an Uber and pay $50 and be there and have a good night. But I come back to this paid off house,
Right.
So it's
Sure.
all about, looking past the flex factor and trying to impress the person down the road or anything like that. But, knowing that they are 65 and they have a mortgage and I'm 43 and I don't, that's a great feeling.
Question. Well, maybe not a question, statement, I guess. I don't actually believe that a true non-ego driven flex factor exists. I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's a construct we create in our minds. And that's where all of our insecurities as men come from. This guy drives a nicer car than me. Who gives a fuck? It's probably a piece of shit.
Case in point right now, to say what you're talking about, who's the biggest man on the internet still right now? Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah.
What does he do? He flashes his private jet, his 17
which is rented. Yeah.
Cars. What color's your Bugatti?
What color's yeah.
That, bro. I mean, apparently he's got it like that. But younger guys see that and they're like, okay, that's what I want. And it's most of us.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of okay. So I'm a big Andrew Tate fan for a lot of reasons, but that's not one of them. The way that he portrays, the way that he presents his message is definitely on the higher end of neurotic, narcissistic, whatever you want to call it, right? I'm not even sure the definition of those, but that sounds right. And I understand why he's doing it, but when the word you use, unattainable, I don't think that what he has is unattainable. I just think it's so out of reach from a psychological standpoint for somebody who is 25 and just trying to save their first $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, whatever position they're in. They listen to him and they're like, all right, bro, cool. What the fuck are we talking about right now? Like, it's just not relevant to them. The conversation is so far gone. It's like a fucking fairy tale. Like, what?
Yeah.
A Bugatti? Okay. $5 million car. Like, fuck you. Yeah. I'm out. I'm not a fan.
I started seeing Andrew Tate. It reminded me of that. If you saw the movie Swordfish,
back
to John Travolta. Remember when the guy he got hemmed up or whatever with his passport, and he was explaining to the CIA or FBI. He was like, "This guy lives in a world above yours," and it shows him with all these shit. And, that's what I thought about, because showing how old I am. That Andrew Tate probably looks to other people, with driving the Bugattis and flying the private jets, and I wouldn't ever hate on anybody aspiring to want to have that lifestyle.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I gotta say, even though I like the guy's message and I like the way he's all about masculinity and he speaks the truth, almost like Myron does on Fresh and Fit.
On Fresh and Fit. Yeah.
Look at where it got him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Look where it got him. I mean, he's been hemmed up twice now, and this one looks like it's really bad.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah. I think the situation for us really, and I think that I can Bentley stop me if this isn't what we're trying to do, but we're just trying to I'm trying to create a digestible type of message, like a digestible situation, something that you can sit down actually after the show or after in the morning or whatever you want to do, write your goals down, and you can say, okay, well, I can attain that. Like, that makes sense. Cool. Okay. Well, that regular dude figured it out. That's, Jaron. I'm as much a moron as any other dude. Right. But 150K or 200K or whatever, that's not unattainable in this world. It's not even close. And I don't even have we're talking, if we could go into work ethic, dude, I love my downtime. I work my ass off, but I also love my downtime, especially during. Yeah. So yeah, I think that his message is good. Masculinity wise, it's great. I don't even mind the flexing, because in some ways it's almost like, he's like coach, he's motivating. It's like, oh man, I can go get a Bugatti too. So there is some of that, but when you turn the fucking computer off and you're sitting in your living room with $800 in your bank account and your refrigerator, your fucking milk is staling in the fridge, reality hits you real quick. You come back to earth real fast after you get that hit of dopamine, and it's not pretty, and it tends to, that cycle tends to fuck with guys real bad because they're like, dude, what, how am I ever, that mountain is just too high to climb. Fundamentally, you're like, I was raised in a fucking trailer. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot, and I think that there needs to be more medium, more realness, more, getting a guy from 50 to 80K or 80 to 100. I mean, that shit's fucking. You can do that all day long with a little more effort,
I
a little
completely
creativity.
agree. And I'm a testament to that.
Right.
I'm not going to tell my life story, but I came from total blue collar family. The military actually gave me my start. I built from that, got my education from the military, didn't have any debt for college, and turned my, what I would call North Florida smarts, because that's where I'm from, and turned it into something. I didn't go infantry to go shoot guns and kill people and that kind of stuff. I learned a really good trade, supply chain, and got a degree in that. Then I got a degree in business. And then once I left the Army after 11 years, active duty, I got a job with a really big company, but when your employee number is this long, that's who you are. And I got reached out.
No shit, right? It's a serial number more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. And you 2% raises, and then I got reached out by the company that I work for now. That's a 8A small business, which people hear that and they think, oh, a small business, that's the gas station down the front. No, a small business is $44.5 million in annual revenue.
Yeah, especially like for government contract stuff. Yeah,
qualifies as a small business.
Yeah. Well, to the government, it is. Yeah.
The person I work for, he's the president of the company. So you've got the president, 2 vice presidents, and myself. Our corporate office is 13 people, and 7 of those are administrative. So I'm learning so much from them that, hey, anybody can do this. The guy, President Steve Malone, he started the business in 2005. It was just him. It took him 2 years to get his first contract. Now look what he's got. He's branched off so many ways. And so it can be done, but you've got to do the work. Nobody's going to give it to you, and nobody cares about your fucking feelings. You've got to learn from your mistakes, or better yet, learn from other people's mistakes. And then
that's a way better way to learn.
Yeah.
A way better way to learn. Just saying. It hurts. Yeah, it hurts a lot less.
Well, like you were saying earlier, Steve, you made some fuck ups in the 20 year range,
dude, I wake up fucking up. Like, are you kidding me? Every day. And that's the reality of life, though. You wake up and you're like, you have self-deprecating thoughts, or you say some shit you don't agree with. Like, I constantly am. I sound like a fucking psychopath, but I'm constantly disagreeing with myself. It's like, I got fat kid syndrome. I was way bigger, not that long ago. And I'm like, oh man, I feel super fat today. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, but you're not. Okay, cool. Let's move on, So it's just a constant checking in with yourself. And it seems like you're doing a really good job of that. And I think that that's probably something that people in their 20s need to pay a little bit more attention to, because of the 20 somethings that I am associated with, they tend to, go with the crowd a lot more. They tend to, I'm not even going to go into like partying and shit like that. It's more of they tend to do the things that their social group finds acceptable rather than what they actually believe. If they believe in anything, that's kind of the caveat, is like, when you're 20, you don't know if you fucking believe in anything. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You barely learned how to talk 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially for males, because one thing we don't mature till we're 30, and still
barely. Are you kidding me?
Guy downstairs, trying to get it wet.
Yeah.
But the bad thing, and no hit on anybody here in the 20s, but what I realized, I'm 44 now, but I realized when I got my divorce at 28 and I was on my own, I had to take on a bunch of debt. I didn't get screwed by my ex-wife, but I didn't have to pay alimony or child support because we never had any, but I took all the debt. We had a boat that we fucking bought because we wanted to keep up with the Joneses. I took the mortgage. She got to leave with her clothes, and that was it.
Sounds like a pretty good fucking deal now, doesn't it?
Yeah. But the one thing I learned is I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought I knew every fucking thing, but I didn't know anything. So it's the quicker you learn that lesson, the better off you are. Because some people don't
Right.
know until they're 50. You know,
The more you know, the more you don't know.
Late, you know.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
deeper you get into the game, the more you realize you're a moron, and
Yeah.
you're just trying to figure it out like everybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Well, Bentley, thanks for giving me the opportunity, man. I
Hey,
want to.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you, Kevin.
Back in the chat. And I'll see you guys in the after show.
Absolutely.
So we got Justice called in, so we'll get some clarification on that question there. That'll be good. So,
Justice, you're on mute.
Put it back up. You're on mute, Justice.
What's going on, guys?
What's up, Bubba?
How's it
Haven't
going?
seen you in a minute.
Right, just got out of the sauna. It's hotter and shit out
Oh, yeah.
there.
I was gonna say your face is as red as your beard.
Yeah. Been at 180 degrees, so
There you
water. It was hot. Hey,
Very good.
so my question, what I was saying is, a guy that's starting from zero, guy,
Right.
I don't matter whether he's 18 or 21 or
Sure.
25, getting out of mom's basement and starting a life with essentially no skills and no money backing him, hasn't made the right choices to get started, or like in Kevin's case, there gets out of a divorce with a bunch of debt and has to
Right.
start his life. What do you guys recommend, especially for guys with no skills, no skill sets, and trying to
Live
make
as cheap as possible. Live as cheap as possible, and fuck up a lot and learn a lot, and get to know what you're good at. Like, you're gonna figure out what you're good at pretty quick, I think. And whether it's something you like to do or not is that's not necessarily relevant when you're trying to pay the bills early, right? Because this is like the concept that I'm talking about is like somebody who's kind of established you figured out, at least for the meantime, what they're going to do, and maybe they get themselves in a position where they can move forward. But when you're talking about like somebody who's brand new, like a newborn baby, just trying to figure out the fucking world, learn how to use the stove for the first time, God, you're just going to get your ass kicked. Like, it's just a reality. We're just going to get you're going to get your shit kicked in. And I think that's an absolutely necessary process for men. I think it's actually essential for men to get out and get their teeth kicked in, whatever. You're just going to get beat up. I think that's how you pave your way at the end of the day. And even whether you're 18, 21, 25, 35, 45, I mean, getting a divorce and losing everything, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You just got a late restart, you know what I mean? So I think for young guys who are kind of fresh, just be ready for shit to be uncomfortable for a while. And I mean, I think it's uncomfortable forever. Really, I don't think it's ever really that comfortable. I can imagine, going and buying that $1 million home, right? Putting $250,000 down. What the fuck am I thinking? That's the first thought that comes to my head. Right? Like, why would I do this? This is preposterous. Like, there's no reason for this, which there really isn't a reason for it. There's nobody needs to live in $1 million home necessarily, unless you live in Denver or some shit where the housing's inflated and you got 5 kids. Like, what the fuck were you doing there, bro? Like,
Yeah.
pull out, for Christ's sake. But, but I mean, yeah, like, go ahead.
So, no, you were just talking about the down
Short
$1 million down payment on the $1 million house.
Yeah,
I
dude.
remember the first time I bought my first real big trailer, I paid more for that trailer than my family paid for the fucking farm I grew up on.
Ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's and dude, you gotta buy some stupid shit. You gotta blow some money on whatever you're into. Like I said openly, for me it was when I was in my early 20s, I got a really, really fucking good job, and I was making, $150K, $200K, even up to 4 or 5 a couple of years. And I just blow that shit on fucking bitches and gambling and booze and traveling and doing all kinds of dumb shit like I was never going to live, like it was always going to come.
Yeah.
And now I'm not nearly making, the highs of that, but now I'm enjoying living a quiet life because I understand what it can be, and I don't know. I think that we always, on a daily basis, we're as men, we're just in a constant battle with ourselves we're trying to self-affirm and, feed mouths and pay the rent or pay the mortgage or whatever, run businesses, You know, you catch yourself like it's almost like a constant state of imposter syndrome. Like you're just constantly going, man, do I really fucking deserve this? Should I really be doing it? Why am I talking to a 45-year-old guy with a $50 million business about how to grow his business? My business ain't worth that shit. I mean, if you on a multiple, I might get to 800K, right? On a high multiple because it's internet business. But like, what the fuck? Who am I, right? But you have to, but you nearly have. It's almost like you have to lie to yourself sometimes, and get yourself through the situation to prove to yourself. That's where confidence, and we talked about confidence conviction a couple of weeks ago. The difference, right? It's like confidence is built, and this I think I'm nearly going to quote Alex Ramosi here. Confidence is built by proving to yourself over a sample set of times that you can accomplish this task, whereas conviction is like a full-on belief, like it's never leaving. It's just who you are. And yeah, so I think that's probably it, as far as I can go as far as clarification. But
so here's another question. Earlier you talked about relocating for a lower cost of living.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot.
Would you recommend that to young guys that are, grew up in a place like Denver that's stupidly overinflated and that, somebody that's first time out on their own, move away from home and get away from the fallback?
Maybe. I think it depends a lot. I think it depends, number one, what your values are. Like me, I grew up in I would say a middle-class family. I would reasonably middle class, where my dad and I share a name. I'm the third. And he was a really highly respected figure in my community. So I was never Steve. I was always Steve's son, right? So, but for me, it's one thing if like we know a couple of people in the group that are trying to follow in their family's footsteps and like create the legacy and stuff like that. And that's totally respectable for them, right? Yeah. For me, I never wanted to be. My dad was the superintendent or the associate superintendent of a prison. I never wanted to be that shit. That seemed miserable. He seemed miserable growing up. It seemed almost as if it was this. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to say anything negative about him because it wasn't him. But the community nearly forced that portrayal. Like normally, they kind of forced him to be in that kind of position, because he was a higher achiever, I guess, in the community. I didn't like that. So I moved 1,000 fucking miles away.
Yeah.
So that I could do my own thing and become my own person and get into my own career and do whatever. So I started traveling, right? And I held a lot of animosity for that. But I think that to answer your question just concisely, it depends on whether you're very close with your family and you want to maintain that, or if you're more of an independent kind of a vagabondy soul. I think that is kind of on the other side. So if you're kind of the adventurer like I am, I would say get the fuck out of there and go somewhere, not necessarily even cheap, just different. Just get out, get away from all of your all of the things that influenced you, and figure out who the fuck you are. Because you could be a completely different person than who you thought you were, which at 17, you don't know who the fuck you are anyways. But like, yeah, 19 years old, go get on an oil rig in Texas if you like labor. Go to college across the country. Go do something. Go experience a different culture. America's kind of cool like that, where Californians and Floridians, they may make a similar income, which I don't know if that's true or not, but you go to each of the states and they're completely different fucking people. Like they're just completely different, completely opposite people. They eat different food. They talk different. They live their lives different. And if you're from California and you say, fuck it, I'm going to Florida, you could have the best time of your life. I think that's probably, I think early on top of money and building something, because I think that 18 to 21 is kind of those years where you're kind of just dipping your toe in the pool and trying to figure shit out. And I even think that up to 30, right, to some degree.
Yeah,
but
for sure. That
is specifically what the fuck you got to take seriously. You don't even know. Like, you don't even know what you're doing. That's why college is such a weird concept to me. Like, I never went to college. It was like, so you're supposed to go spend a couple $100,000 on becoming a professional in a field that you don't even think that you want to become a fucking professional in that field. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But you got to spend the $200,000 and you're going to be in debt for the next 35 years best case scenario to a 20 maybe if you get a high income job, right? So for the new guy, go experiment. Go be a roommate. Go share a room with a dude. Sleep on an air mattress. Who fucking cares? Like,
Exactly.
why not?
Another concept here
There
for
you go. That's the meat and potatoes of what I was trying to get at is don't be afraid to get on that air mattress. Don't be afraid to sleep on couches, couch surf. Get out there and live it.
Go sleep in a tent, bro. Like, you're 18. Go camping. Like, fuck it. Why not? Like, go live in the woods.
A good concept, and we've got another guest who's calling in here. He's keeping himself quiet. We'll bring him in. He's actually going to have a good perspective. I think another good thing for a young guy who doesn't have a lot of, like you were talking, Justice, early in your call here, somebody who has, no real skills and doesn't know where they are in life. I had a friend when I was 18 that he didn't know what he wanted to do with life. He wasn't going to go to college. So he got a job at a temp agency. So he was put in a different place like constantly. So he got the chance to do like 50 different jobs without having 50 different jobs on his resume. But realized what he liked, but then had experience from all these different jobs, these different places he could gather. And his life took off very, very well, which when he first started doing it, I thought, what are you doing, bro? You've got no life. You've got no plan. You've got no goal. Like a temp thing. What are you doing? 5 years later, the dude is on a rocket ship, man. So, there are options if you think in a creative way, like allow yourself to think outside the box.
I think it's just being open to whatever comes your way, because you don't actually know what you're into, right? Like, like the business that I got into, I am not in, like, that is not who I am. I work in the fucking insurance business. I'm a hillbilly. What the fuck am I talking about? Like, I'm in the insurance business of all things. But for some reason, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was, I think it was 8 years ago, I just so happened to pop into, a storm, and I got the dopamine rush of selling a roof. And next thing you know, I'm learning this program. And next thing you know, I'm learning stuff from insurance adjusters. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of sneaky cool. Like, I don't know why. It's kind of dorky, but I'm kind of a dork, so it's fine. I guess this is what I'm going to do for a while. And now I'm sitting here going, fuck, I need to learn AI, and I need to learn marketing, and I need to learn SEO. And I'm just like going crazy because now I want to learn something else. But yeah, I mean, it's just staying open, just being open, being that young. I mean, you're so, it's literally like a newborn baby. They're just soaking everything in. When you leave the nest of your mother at 18, and you go out on your own as a man for the first time and burn your first grilled cheese sandwich, you're just fucking figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's cool. Like, that's the coolest part of life. Like, fuck responsibility if you're that young. Like,
enjoy the process, because it's not going to last forever.
Absolutely.
So, right on, Justice. We'll catch you on the after chat here. I'm going to bring in this other guest. I think he's going to have a very interesting perspective. So he wants to remain secretive, which is totally fine. I respect that. I know who he is. This is a money guy. This guy has, which there's nothing wrong with. And Steve and I have advocated for that. We're not saying go live in a $350 hut for the rest of your life. We're saying use it as a catapult, as a launch pad to give yourself some money to get some options and do something. So, I don't know what you want to call yourself, mystery guest, but I do know what you do, and I do know where you're at. So I really want to hear your perspective.
I kind of dig the question marks, honestly.
Yeah, we'll call them question marks.
Yeah, Bentley, you guys hear me? Am I squared away?
Yeah, you're just fine. You're good.
Yeah, man, it's just interesting concept. I don't disagree with a lot of it. I sort of had just a little bit different take on some of the concept of it. I guess the question I really want to ask Steve basically is I'm trying to get clarity on the difference between the minimalist lifestyle, obviously make more than you spend, versus the difference in going out and just crushing it in the world, whether that's your business, real estate, whatever the case of it is, and making as much money as possible. I'm trying to get the clarity there because in my mind, it sounds like you're trying not to work to get the extra cash. I'm just trying to get your clarity on that.
Yeah, it's both, right? It's freeing up your life. It's minimizing the maintenance when you're younger, when you're in a transitionary period in your life. It's minimizing that maintenance, i.e., moving into an apartment, not having to cut your own grass, outsourcing your laundry, shit like that. It's minimizing that stuff and to give you the more opportunity to do things that you want to do, whether that's build a business or, for me, competitive golf or both, you know. So I think it's a little bit of, it's a hybrid of both of what you're talking about.
Fair enough. The other thing that I think Justice asked the question of that I think is highly important, and I think this is the area that most people miss out on. And Bentley, you know, I deal with college kids on a regular basis as part of a charitable organization that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you do.
It's the mentorship. And here's the problem that the young kids have is it starts with the parents. The parents don't do a good job of educating the kids on the steps of the process. They just say, hey, go off to college and hopefully when you're there, you'll figure something out. And that's the
Right.
step that the parents just do a horrible job at, is educating the kids. I mean, they show up and they don't know how to do. They don't know how to study. They don't know study habits. They don't know how to shake a hand. They don't know how to work a room. They don't know
Right.
how to do. I mean, they're helpless humans. And the problem that they have is they don't figure out a way to get a mentor. So asking Justice's question as far as, if I'm a young kid, I don't know anything about anything, what are my steps? And the first step we always put them with is go find a mentor. And it could be, you know, a college professor, it could be your dad's friend, it could be your uncle, it could be grandfather, it could be a guy down the street, whoever it is that has
Sure.
a skill set. Maybe he has the car you want. Maybe he lives in the $1 million house. Whatever it is that you think
Right.
you want, you got to go find that guy. And you got to figure out a way to get him to help you, whether it's, you know, the standard line of how can I bring value to this guy? Maybe I'll mow his yard every week for free if he'll give me, you know, an hour of his time on Sunday when he goes to the car show in his, you know, Corvette or whatever it might be. So you
Right.
can start to pick out his skill set. So you can start to avoid the pitfalls, Steve, that you missed in your 20s where you were making a ton of cash, killing it, but nobody had showed you, hey, don't fucking go gambling. Don't waste it on women. Like, buy a duplex and go live in half of it, right?
Yeah.
They didn't teach
No,
you that skill set.
absolutely. No, I didn't.
So-
I didn't learn that until recently, really.
So that's the part that the kids miss is they don't have a mentor. They're scared to find a mentor. They don't know how to ask. Nobody's ever told them how to do it. But if they do that, they'll avoid all the pitfalls. You know, we spend a lot of time with the boys asking them the questions of, what do I now know I'm 43? What do I now know at 43 that if I had at 21 would have changed the trajectory of my life? And so we try to set them up with these answers. The problem with it is, like you said, Steve, is that most people are idiots. And even if I gave them the answers to the test, they'd still manage to screw it up.
Most people are just fucking arrogant. Yeah, they're arrogant.
They just don't know. You know, it's
Yeah.
just that standard thing of, you know, well, I want to go buy the, you know, I don't know, Dodge Challenger, whatever it might be at 23, because I think it will help me get chicks. That's the most
Yeah.
common answer. And that's the
100%.
completely wrong answer. When the real
Absolutely.
answer is, if they went and bought that duplex, they rented one side and released out the other side when they were on the first date, if they told that story, that girl would be much more interested in them after a 30-minute conversation. They would be the guy that's
100%.
driving the brand new Mercedes SL 500 or whatever the case of it is. But nobody's telling them this stuff. They don't know, and the parents are the worst part of all of it.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts with the parents. I also do believe that the hustle culture, the YouTube, the younger guys that are lying to these guys and telling them, oh, you know, I'm just like you. You can do this too, which I do believe. I think that anybody can do anything if you really want it that bad. I totally lost track of what I was going to say, actually.
No, I think I know where you're going with this. You were going down the path of they're trying to convince these 20, 22, 23, 24-year-old kids that if they work really hard for 18 months, they too can have a Bugatti. And there's absolutely no truth to that with the exception of the extreme outlier TikTok video guy. What they need to recognize, and that is it's extreme outlier. Does it happen? Of course, but not to anybody I personally know, and I know some wealthy people. What they need to recognize is the question of, and I was talking to Rich about this the other day, the question of, if I'm 24, and let's say I'm a year or two into my career, right? Pretty standard procedure.
Yeah.
I've got two trajectories. I've got trajectory one, which is I can work for XYZ public company, making 75 grand a year. Every year I'm going to get a 3% bonus. And every 5 years, if I do a good job, I'll get a raise and I'll get a $25,000 bonus for a new position, right? I go from position A to position B to position C. I work all the way through that. By 35, maybe I'm making 150 grand and I'm, you know, vice president in name, whatever the case of it is. That's
Sure.
option number one. That's not a bad option. Option number two, what sounds like you did, is start your own business. And here's where the kids mess that up, is that they don't understand, is that it's not a straight line trajectory like it is with the business. You don't get that 2% raise and that 5% bonus, or I left companies, I got $10,000 raise. It's year 1, 2, 3, try not to fail. Bentley, you know all about this. Year 1, 2, 3, try not to fail. Just don't fail.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the list. Don't fail. Year 4, something falls in your lap and you get a $20,000 raise that year. Year 5, your business partner leaves and you're back to square one. Year 6, you pick something up and you get $20,000 raise. Year 7, you hit a home run and you make an extra $100,000 that year. Year 8, there's a recession, you lose $50,000. And then all of a sudden, after 15 years, you look up and you're making $250,000, $300,000, $400,000. But nobody tells the kids that. Nobody's there to walk them through that process of, it's not straight line. It's all over the board. But they think if I do it for 18 months, I'll be a hero. But most of them can't make it 6, I mean, 6 months in, they're like, well, I wasn't making any money. So I quit and I'm trying to figure something else out. And like, that's just completely inaccurate, but nobody's helping them with it. Nobody's telling them these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think your cycles are even like I'll call them the fuck up cycles. Those are even like, those are long. I've only been in business for I'm just closing in on year 3, I think, and I've probably gone through all that shit 3 times. It's like every quarter I go through that. It seems like, there's weeks that I'll work 90 hours and I'll make $800, and there's weeks I'll work 10 hours and make 5, 10, 12, 15 grand. It's the weirdest thing, but you just I think you just kind of get used to it. It's kind of fun. You wake up and not really know what's going on. And as long as you, at this point in my, 3 years, I'm technically still in the red zone, the early days. I'm just trying not to lose it at the end of the day. So that couple hundred, that 150 to 200 could turn into 0 real quick. All I gotta do is fuck up once, because everybody in my business is pretty tight knit. They know.
That's always the question is, how many steps are you away from starting over? That's always the question, right? I always say it's about 3 steps. We're always about
that's
3
exactly
steps
what I was
away
gonna
from
say.
a complete start over.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and even Go ahead.
Bentley, I see you smiling like crazy because I know your story and I know you've been through all of those steps.
Oh yeah. The 3 steps for starting over. Completely wiped out. There's no 2 ways about it. I had, in my 20s, I had life by the balls, literally. Kid grew up on a farm with literally nothing. And, by the time I was mid 20s, I was making $100,000 a year in a, 30 years ago. I'm 51. So like, that's almost 30 years ago. I was making that kind of money when the average was $35,000 in the area that I was in. But life was easy, very easy.
Yeah.
Built a business, was, making a couple $100,000 a year when I was married and living on a couple $100,000+ a year. So literally left that with not nearly as much as I should have, and then got wiped out starting over. You're always 3 steps away from, oh shit, let's guess it's time to reboot and away we go.
Yeah.
So to go back to kind of getting that start over and balancing Steve's fine line of living a minimalist lifestyle, but making more and using the assets wisely. I think it goes back to, my concept of buying assets, right? We all look back and in our 20s, had we done a better job of buying assets. And when I say asset, I mean income producing or appreciating asset. The most easy one to pick is real estate, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think back to 25, what do we all do? Most of us, well, some of you got married, I suppose. Bentley, that was not me, but a lot of the guys got married there. But the ones that didn't, had they bought that house, that 4-bedroom house at 25 and moved their retarded friends in with them, right? Now, granted, they'd have to deal with their friends tearing up the house and all the different things. But 5 years later, that house would have been worth, 20, 50, 75 grand, depending on where they're at and what the market is. And then they flip that one into the next one and that one into the next one. By 35, Steve, it sounds like you're kind of in that spot. You've got those handful of rentals, right?
Sure.
Is it easy? Absolutely not. It's no easier, no harder than starting that business with those pitfalls because, things are going to happen, but it sets you up for what really happens from 35 to 45. And that's where you should really start to ton it if you're doing well. Steven, it sounds like you're sort of getting to that point now where you're going to start really tunning it over the next 10 years. And that's the game changer. 20 to 35 sets you up, gets you to that second base. And if you do that right from 35 to 45 or 55, you can just absolutely hit home run after home run. The problem is most people don't even get started until 35 or 40 because they fucked around from 18 to 25 to 35.
Sure, and just to clarify, I don't own those homes. I actually lease those homes with the agreement that I can rent them out.
Okay.
So I don't own any physical real estate. Go ahead.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'm slightly more behind.
What's
I
that?
just leased them with the option to be able to short-term rental them. That was in the agreement. Yeah. Yeah. So I just pay like a normal renter. Yeah. And then get to make money off of it as long as I guarantee the rent.
That actually sounds fairly low risk, and then being able to
extremely low risk.
Capital.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what the net is. It's really common in the United States actually. Companies are actually doing it where they're renting out, half a dozen or a dozen homes, that's not really a company, but an individual is creating an entity, going and corporate leasing out for 3 years, a dozen houses, furnishing those houses as if somebody was living there, and then putting them on Airbnb and listing them. I just so happen to live in South Georgia, and the house that I was leasing is owned by the neighbor who is leasing my pickup at this point. And I pay $2,000 a month for that house that I don't live in, but I have furniture in it. And I said, hey, I'm not going to be here full time. Can I go ahead and sublease this out, short term to, as a vacation rental? Is that okay with you so that I can pay my rent when I'm not here? And he said, yeah, man, do whatever the fuck you want. All right, I'm going to put that in the lease. Like, let's add that clause in the lease. And that's been going for, God, I've been living in Kansas for 2 years now. So I've been paying him his rent, I guess, for that long or longer than that. So he just sees new people every 3 days, basically. So it's kind of a cool way to make a living. Make rent. I'm not even really sure what the net is. I'm not even attached to that. I have that being managed elsewhere. So I would have to look, but I can't imagine it's more than maybe $1,000 a month at most, probably in profit.
It's next order income. So mystery guest, with the young guys that like you said, your younger age, 19 age, whatnot. What do you recommend for them to find a mentor to get one? Because that's something I've talked about in the past. Gave some tips on. I'm always looking for tips for that because I'm assuming I'm speaking mostly to a younger audience who I try to appeal to. Get your shit in gear, and I'm not the Andrew Tate. Go make Bugatti money next year because it's unrealistic for most people. How to actually get ahead in life and avoid some of my mistakes because I've made a shitload of them. So learn from mine. Like we said, it's cheaper and easier to learn from somebody else's. But what are your recommendations on that?
How to find a mentor?
Yes.
Man, that's it's always a $1 question. The simple answer to this is, like anything else, start with your natural network, right? Hopefully, your dad's got, somebody in his network that does really well. Your mom does, your uncle does, something like that. That's always a network to start. But you want to start with somebody either A, that has something that you would like to have, it has a lifestyle that you'd like to have, right? Maybe they live, like I said, down the street and they got the big house and the boat and the car and the vacation house, right? Or 2, somebody that does something you want to do, right? Maybe you're particularly not a college guy, but you're pretty handy. You want to be a mechanic. You want to be a cabinet maker, something like that. Go find one of those guys. Just straight up cold approach them, right? But you got to bring a value to it, right? Like I said, One of my players that I mentor, he mows my yard every week. And in exchange for him mowing my yard, he comes into my office once a week for about an hour, and we talk about this, that, and the other thing, right? So that's the value exchange. A lot of people want to have that internship. We get kids coming all the time to our office wanting to intern. It's like, how much are you going to pay us? And I'm like, wait a second. I bill out at give or take $500 an hour, and you want me to pay you $12 an hour for me to tell you what to do so I could do that myself, right?
Yeah.
So they always want to do that. Where in exchange, they'll come into our office, and if they want to intern with us, they got to get college credit. So the answer is start with your natural network. Find somebody that either has a life you would like to mimic, or somebody that has a skill set you would like to have, and figure out a way to bring value to them. Right? Hey, I'd like to pick your brain, 3 hours a week, and in exchange for that, I will. I'll come in on Sundays and sweep the shop, or whatever ridiculous thing you can come up with. Man, I'll wash your Bugatti, whatever it is, right? But you got to bring value to that guy, because, man, we have idiots that come into our office all the time. They don't look the part, they don't act the part, their vocabulary is not squared away, they've not practiced their speech. You've got to work on that stuff in the off time. You've got to watch the YouTube videos. You've got to practice in the mirror. You've got to record yourself giving that presentation, so that when you're on the big stage, you're big in the big moment, as I call it, big in the big moment, right? So you've got to bring value to that guy, but a lot of the kids won't. They'll just show up like, so I guess I'm here for an internship interview. And you're like, man, next, you're out of here. Right. So you've got to bring that, you got to bring that value. And then it goes down to the thing that I always tell. I was telling Moff this the other day, is that it comes down to the three things. So they come in and I give them a task. All right. Your task is A and B. Right. And you get kind of three different categories of kids. You get the kid that does A and B. Fair enough. Like, I'm okay with that kid. You get the kid that does A, part of B, and he sort of makes some excuse. Well, I had a test to study for, whatever the case of it is, right? And then you got the kid that's the best, that does A, does B, and then he goes, hey, it seemed logical that C was the next progression, so I went and did that also. Is that okay? Right? And so if you get the C kid, he's the home run. If you get the A kid, you can generally train the A kid to turn into the C kid. If you get the B kid, maybe you give him a second shot, and he's probably going to do it again, and then you got to get rid of him. You got to dump him. So when you get that chance, you find that mentor, you found that value add, you figured out a way to get in, for that once a week meeting by Mona's yard or whatever it might be, then you've got to be impressive. That's just step one. Step two is showing up 5 minutes early, leaving 5 minutes late, looking the part, practicing the part. With the boys, we work on them everything. We work on them with a handshake. We work on with them if there's, 6 or 7 people standing in a circle. When you introduce, so if I was to introduce Bentley, hey, this is my friend Bentley. Man, he owns a semi company, ships the biggest items you could possibly imagine. Ginormous tankers. He ships them across the country. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, because now immediately Bentley in a group of people has a value add. Everybody knows he has a unique skill set. He's just not some dude standing there. He's not some chump. He's a dude with a skill set. So we teach them every time somebody comes into the group, you introduce them and then you throw them a compliment to make sure they have value in the group. And then when you meet somebody new, like I'd be like, if I met Bentley, I'd be like, man, Bentley, nice to meet you, man. You have a great head of hair, because Bentley knows I got a shaved head, right? So immediately I've introduced myself to Bentley and I'm throwing Bentley a compliment. Look at, he's smiling right now, because every guy wants to know he has a nice head of hair. So these are the kind of little things that we mentor the kids with, so that they learn this. When you meet somebody, don't just be like, hi, my name's Bentley. Like, hi, my name's Bentley. Nice to meet you. By the way, you have, man, that's a sharp looking suit. Or I'll do this with a girl sometimes. I'll be like, the standard line of like, man, you're really doing that dress a favor. You'll throw them a compliment, but not something generic and cheesy, right?
Yeah.
And all those little skill sets help you get that mentorship, help you hold that mentorship, and get you to stage 2, to stage 3, to stage 4, where they want to start teaching you those value adds, rather than you're just some new dude in the line of 17 interns we've had. You're that intern that stands out, that they remember, that they want to make that introduction to.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Very good.
Yeah,
well, thank you very much, Mister. We really appreciate it. You're coming on and asking the questions and clarifying. That's cool. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
He'll give me the compliment of the hair. The dude's built like a brick shit. His shoulders are like freaking wide. So, right on, man. Thank you much. We'll talk to you later, Mr. Guest. All right. So we've been on for quite a while. Holy shit, we've gone well. Got a couple of comments here. Got a couple guys disagreeing with us. So this one here.
Cool.
JR, shoot small and you'll always be small.
Nobody's shooting small. I think that it's more less than shooting small. It's a slingshot effect. You're dialing the things that don't matter back to project your life in a direction, if that's the right word. Yeah, you're dialing back the things that aren't really relevant to what you're trying to accomplish so that you can focus on the stuff that does. So it's quite to the contrary. Going and living in a smaller apartment has nothing to do with shooting small. That's in short. It has nothing to do with shooting small. I understand what he's saying, but first off, nobody here's small. we're talking about reducing bullshit so that you can live a more fulfilling life. Going buying $1 million home for your ego is not going to help your case at all. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe there are people, okay, so we'll talk about the exception right now. There's a guy who goes and puts the $250 down on the $1 million home, and he's motivated to go make additional cash, whatever that is, to be able to cover that bill and make sure that he can afford that. Sure, there's that guy. But the general rule of thumb, from my perspective, is if you can't afford it, don't buy it.
Yeah, I do agree with that one. He's also got, you can climb any mountain, argue for your limitations, and they're yours. And with that, I agree.
Yeah.
If you choose to limit yourself, my point of living on less than you make and, being able to do that is to allow you to, do what you choose. If you choose to do it forever, you choose to do it forever. Like you decide you want to, live in a 600 square foot apartment and just do that forever. That's your choice. I backed off, lived very inexpensively to give myself this time to start this new business. I'll be quite frank. My goal next year is I want to try and hit 7 figures next year in business revenue.
Totally.
So, but that's the goal. That's what I want to get to. But I'm also capable of still living on $30,000 a year. So, think of the amount of money I could put away and how much more I can, amass more businesses or grow my business with that kind of extra revenue and cash around. So,
I agree.
It's not advocating to live a life of nothing and having nothing forever. Use it as a builder, like Justice mentioned, the young guy.
Yeah, if we're not even talking, like, this is all relative. That's the thing. This is 100%. I don't care. Like, I don't even know how many people are on the stream, but it's 100% a case by case basis. Everybody is different. Bentley, you live different than I do. I live different than Jaron. Jaron lives different than Mr. Mystery Man. Like, even if we all apply the exact same principle, our lives will look completely different. We might be going parallel as far as trajectory, speed, or whatever. It's all dependent, and it's all dependent on what you even make. I mean, we've gone from I'm assuming highly accomplished Mystery Man, or we've gone from Justice talking about the 18-year-old kid who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground to the highly accomplished Mystery Man who's mentoring those people specifically. So we've covered 2 decades of experience and life and just different positions. So there's no right or wrong answer. That's why it's an open discussion about, what should be. I think, live below your means. Don't be a moron. Like, it's not complicated. It has nothing to do with being small. Nothing.
Yeah, and live within your means no matter what you're doing. He's also got another one here. I like this one actually. When you make $1 million, $1 million house is nothing. I agree. And like I said, my goal is to do that in business revenue next year. That's not net, of course. I'm going to have expenses out of that. It's not like I'm going to make $1 million cash myself for the year. And even if I did, I'm in Canada, the government would take 52% of it. So I wouldn't make $1 million.
Yeah,
so,
and this
more on the other end too.
Yeah, and this conversation isn't for people who are already making millions and $1 million house. Of course, I mean that's you're absolutely right. When you make millions, $1 million house is nothing. 100% agree. But the people who are interested in what we're talking about aren't making millions of dollars. They're trying to figure out how to make millions of dollars, and all we're trying to do is free up. Jaron said it, mental real estate. So they can focus on what they're interested in or whether they're even whether even making millions of dollars is even what they want, because that comes with responsibility. It comes with commitment. It's a whole different level of a ball game that I'm not even sure about. I just read about it, right? So, I mean, some of these people on here may or may not even make it there, and they may or may not even want to make it there. May get to 200K or 300K or 100K or 80K or whatever the number is, and that's their magic number. They're happy there, and it happens all the fucking time. That's why 95% of the world is normal, and then we got the 4% that are above average, and the 1% that are making 400K plus in the U.S.
Yeah, and that's like I got a guy I used to contract with that I talk with on an occasion, and this guy makes tens of millions of dollars, actually more than that, in a year. And we just had a conversation here towards the end of last year. And I mean, he makes would I like to have his money? Sure, but the flip side is I'm not entirely sure I want to have his stress, because we talked about it. He was at the point he's got 350 families that work for him. He's responsible for putting roofs over the heads and, food on the table for 350 families. That's a responsibility. That's a ton of shit to deal with, So
that's your life.
Yeah. Ask yourself that question. Like, do you really want to be that guy? And if you do, go for it. By all means, go for it. I personally don't want 350 families relying on me. That's not where my headspace is.
Yeah, I think that, you're right. And this is, and that's where some of this information we get online, like I watch as much of it as anybody else, as far as, the younger guys who are making $5 million a month or whatever bullshit. Right. Like, and I think, wow, I'm nowhere like that but in reality, I'm a fairly accomplished 33-year-old guy, pretty, I would say, above average in that regard. But there's so much information that it almost gets to a toxic level. And it just kind of deflates you at the end of the day. You're like, fuck, I'm not worth a shit. I feel like I'm killing it until I turn on Instagram. Well, it's because 95% of what you see is fucking bullshit. It's not real. So, I mean, that's why comparison, what is it? Comparison is the thief. Is that the right?
I don't think I've heard that one. I'm not sure. Yeah. So.
Oh, the comparison is the thief of all joy. Comparison is the thief of all joy.
I like
that. That's
good.
Inspired thought.
That's good. Yeah, we both know Jaron. He's throwing this up here, which, by the way, Jaron's got a YouTube channel too, so check out his stuff. It's always good. He's good with women, really good with that sort of stuff. And he's doing a Gringo's Guide to Mexican girls. So
that's awesome.
He's been on and chatted with us before, but he's been both condo poor and car poor. It's not fun. Knowing I can go anywhere I want, do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whomever I want is more my style now. Exactly. And I've been there as well. I was the free guy in my 20s, then got married, and my wife and I, we lived beyond our means. We really did. At the end of the day, it's my fault. I know exactly who that, responsibility falls to. It was joint with her as well, but, a good portion of that lands on me. And I was house poor and condo poor, car poor. Well, it wasn't really car poor, but house poor and just exorbitant lifestyle poor. And it wasn't fun. And being in that position where you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, however you want, with whatever friends you want, it's freedom. You cannot put a price and a value on your freedom, and living in such a way that allows you to not be under the gun, have some cash to either do what you want, invest it, build a business, buy a business, travel and experiences, go golfing like Steve, go riding in the motorcycle in the mountains like I do, whatever your choice is. Like, we're not telling you what to do. We're just telling you, make up your choice, decide what works for you and go and do it. And when you live on a little less, you can afford to do it how you want and live life on your own terms. And living life on your own terms is always better. Yeah,
it's just a simple construct. You can adapt it to your life. Like, who am I, right? I'm just having a conversation with my friend Bentley over here. It's like you can take it and make it whatever the hell you want to do. You can make it whatever you want. If you love living in your $2,000 a month condo, live in your fucking $2,000 a month condo. Who am I, right? if you don't care about cars but you love your house, clearly you know where you can reduce your expenses if you already haven't. The opposite is true too. If you live in a fucking trailer and you drive a Lamborghini, by all means, do whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? Like, live your life. Like, we've all only got a certain amount of time on this planet. Live however the fuck you want. But I just figure, why not live a little bit more conservatively when it matters?
Yeah.
When I have the energy to put my energy into the stuff that can actually advance my life, rather than maintaining some fucking bullshit facade that I'm more successful than I am. I could go buy a $500,000 house right now and be doing this in a 3-car garage with a full-on studio. No thanks. I don't want to have to call the lawn maintenance guy on Thursdays. I don't want to have to put the trash bin out. Like, I just stuff like that. I don't want to have a maid because my girl ain't cleaning 3,000 square feet. I got the attention span for that shit, So it's like, just keep it simple. Just quit being ridiculous about it. That's me, but that's me, right? That's me, and that's what the kind of the way that you're living too. So,
yeah, and I'm living this way to build something. I do have a plan and a goal that I don't necessarily announce publicly, but and he's put up.
Sure.
This is a friend of mine, and I know who all openness and transparency here. I know who's posting this. We've had conversations. And he knows where I'm at. And I do intend to build something to leave a legacy to change the world. I don't have anybody to leave it to. So I have a mission and a goal. When I get to a place where I can actually start accomplishing that, I'll announce that. But until then, it's kind of between me and my people, my inner circle. They know what it is. They know what it's about. They know my passion project. And yes, in order to change the world, I must take responsibility, which I am, which is part of the reason why I live below my means. And like I said, my goal next year is to, in all reality, I want to break that 7 figures thing next year. I really do with my business. I'm really hoping I can, but I'm not going to live like that. I'm still going to live. I'm going to increase my lifestyle because I live very minimalistically now. I do want to live a little better, but I can live like this and I can do this, make the sacrifice to make the gains that I want. And I will. I'm probably not the type who will ever live in a multi-million-dollar house. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
When I was married, had the big fancy house, pool in the backyard, what the hell, 1,200 square foot garage, cars, dragsters, motorcycles, God, you name it in there. Like, I've had that and was house poor. I don't really want that again. If I get to the point where I can, have $1 million cash laying around, I decide to buy a house, fine. But, it's not on my priority list. And that is, in all reality, that's what we're talking about, isn't it, Steve? Is your priority list. What is important to you?
Yeah. I mean,
if
and
you
that's
want
what,
$4 million house, Lamborghinis, and
don't get it.
Work your ass off.
Fucking, if that's what, at the end of the day, it's about fulfillment, right? Like and that's why I keep I'm kind of like a parrot. Like, who am I? Like, who are you? We're just presenting a different way of thinking about it. You don't hear a lot on YouTube or whatever platform. You hear hustle this and work 20 hours a day. Fuck you. Like, I'm not working no 20 hours. I'm sorry. I got 12 in me and I'm over it. Like, my bad. Right? I'm the most ambitious person in the world until I get hungry or tired. And then I'm either eating or sleeping, and it just is what it is. And then there's 2 hours in there for me to shit, shower, shave, and figure out whatever else I'm going to do, and then whatever my hobbies are. I mean, what the fuck? Like, yeah, but who are we to tell you how to live your life? It's just like, if you want to live a little less stressed out, for the most part. I mean, it's not completely stress free, but it's pretty stress free. This is a pretty good way to go. Give it a shot. Fuck it. Do it a month. If you hate it, go back to what you were doing. Like, not rocket science.
You can always go buy more shit. They sell it every day.
Absolutely. You can always go back to the dealership and get your fucking car back if you're really that into it,
You click the fucking.
You can always move into a nicer place.
Tomorrow.
Guarantee you they got a more expensive piece of real estate for your ass to buy. I guarantee it.
Yes,
open up Zillow. It'll blow your mind, right?
There you go. Well, we've gone on real long. So I guess we should probably wind it down. This has gone on long. It's been great. So I'd like to get you, like Steve is going to wants to start his own YouTube channel. So when he gets up and running, we'll definitely promote him on here. And thanks for calling in, being a guest. I'd like to have you back again someday and chop it up a little more about the real estate thing, because I know we didn't get into that very much, but I know we did on our conversation after hours last week. Steve really knows it well. Like he really broke down the real estate market across the US and identifying some things. And I think having that discussion maybe a bit on a surface level, for those that are smart and you pay attention, there's a lot of opportunity in there, a lot of business opportunity. I'm never going to publicly tell you what you should invest in and what you shouldn't, because I don't want somebody coming to me saying, you said do this and I lost a whole bunch of money. Hey, I do dumb shit, lose money every day. Welcome to the real world. It's called a mistake, called a lesson learned.
Right.
But you know, there's some lessons there to look at and go, maybe there's some opportunities. And so I'd like to maybe discuss that again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I love real estate. I'll always love real estate, even if I don't want to own it.
There you go. Good deal. All right, on Kevin. Thanks very much for coming in tonight. Steve, sorry. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Oh, you're good.
I see that come up.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and all the callers. So anyhow, we'll shut her down. I'll let you go, Steve, and I'll see you on the after show.
Later.
All right, so that kind of winds up for tonight. Like I say, we're gonna go hit the after show. And do that like I always do every week. If you're a member of the community, you can come on in there. So do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, share this with somebody. Maybe you know a young guy who's just starting out in life and is, you know, going to go down that wrong path of, like our mystery guest said, of, you know, putting himself in a bad position. Or maybe you can guide him into that position to take an internship. So I won't give his identity away, but one thing I can tell you with our mystery guest is, yes, he does know a lot of extremely wealthy people, and he does bill out at $500 an hour. That is not bullshit. That is 100% real. Literally cutting that man's grass and him giving you an hour every week of mentorship and guidance on how to get ahead in life is the best pay you're ever going to get to cut grass in 100 years and then some. It could be life-changing. I've had a couple of conversations with him. He's a great guy. You know, and when I get to that point where I have a bunch of money to invest, he's the guy I'm going to probably be calling. So once again, it's another privilege of being in a network and joining communities, as you get the chance to have FaceTime and associate with these people. Him and I had conversations and drinks down in Jackson this last summer, and, you know, learned things there. So, you know, as with anything in life, it's all about, you know, who you know and how you manage things and what you do and how you manage your time and your money and live your life on your terms. Like I said, you know, I took 2 years to develop what I've got going, and we're just about to start hitting strides and making real progress here. So I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't willing to make some sacrifices and live well below my means. It wasn't the plan at the time. I pivoted the plan from what was originally what I was saving up the money to do with it, ended up deciding to do something better, which is going to better my life more and in a better way in a longer term. So short-term sacrifice. That's largely what we're talking about. We're not saying to do this forever unless you choose to. That is entirely your choice. It's live within your means to put yourself in a position to do something better, or put yourself in a position where you're not living under somebody else's thumb and you get to live life on your own terms. And that's the biggest thing. When you put yourself in a position like that and you have that ultimate freedom of, like Jaron said, being able to go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, with whoever he wants, how he wants, that type of freedom is phenomenal to have. You know, and as one of the comments was further back in here, you know, real freedom is when you have the millions and you can fly your friends to come along with you. And that is as well. And go and do that. And you can achieve that, you know, even if you're not making millions of dollars a year, or you can get to the point of making millions a year if you have lived below your means and you saved some money to be able to invest it properly. And however you want to do that, investments, business, whatever the case may be, invest in yourself, your education, knowing more. And by education, I don't mean university. I mean an actual education of learning how to do something. I think university is largely overpriced and overvalued, and not a great thing. So anyhow, that's what I got for tonight. We've gone really freaking long. So if you hung in there, thank you very much. I see a bunch of you are still there, and I really do appreciate it, hanging around listen to my rambling BS. It's muchly appreciated. So have yourself a great night. I'm off to the after show to BS with the boys and talk about a little deeper discussions. Take care.